Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Villain. My junior sisters are all black empresses. Chapter 31. The main peak is behind the mountain. Mountain top. The cold wind howled. Jonyang's clothes rustled in the strong wind. He turned around and glanced at Hongyu, who was leaning against the willow tree behind him. His eyes were fixed on her slender and graceful body, and he calmly said, "Junior sister, you should know that if you don't go back with me, next time even if the master comes to invite you personally, I won't be able to protect you by then." Hongyu stretched out his hand to lift a strand of black hair from his forehead, and smiled coldly. "You don't know what kind of person your master is, right?" Jonyang frowned. "Hand over Feng Qingling, and then come back with me. I will protect you from now on." Hongyu sneered. "You'd better protect yourself." Jonyang looked back at the misty white clouds under the mountain, and sighed heavily in his heart. "I never thought that you would embark on the path of evil cultivation. You should know that I like you very much in my heart, and I will even do anything for you. I also know that you don't like me, but aren't you willing to give me even a chance to protect you?" Hongyu leaned against the willow tree. She raised her head slightly, stretched out her jade hand to catch a willow leaf, put it under the sun, took a look at the veins on it, and then curled her lips and said, "Get out." Aha! The willow leaves turned into extremely sharp weapons and slashed across Jonyang's face, leaving a deep blood mark. Jonyang's eyes were filled with gloom. "You want to fight with me? If you don't get out, you will have no choice but to die here." Hongyu raised his eyes, a faint murderous intention flashing across his eyes. Jonyang gritted his teeth, squeezed his hands tightly, and finally took a deep breath of cold air in his heart. After weighing the pros and cons, he said in a deep voice, "I don't want to fight you. Anyway, I know where you are. This time, I will go back to meet Master first, and I will come to you again when I have time." He stared at Hongyu deeply for the last time. The spiritual energy in his body surged and turned into light and left here. Hongyu looked at his leaving figure with murderous intent in her eyes. The next second, her eyes changed slightly, and she turned to look behind her. I saw a slender hand reaching out, directly grabbing her slender waist, bringing her into his arms, and then imprisoning her delicate body to the tree trunk. Hongyu was stunned for a moment, feeling the familiar man's breath coming towards her face. The coldness in her eyes quickly melted away, and a sweet smile appeared on her face. She hugged the neck of the man in front of her with her hands. "When did you come?" Su Ming looked calm, sniffing Hongyu's fragrance, and stretched out his fingers to lift her white chin. "I've been here since someone poured you tea. Why, don't you want to explain anything to me?" Quote. Hongyu thought for a while and smiled foolishly. "You have seen it yourself, what else do I have to explain?" Su Ming tapped her forehead. "Who was that man just now?" Hongyu puffed her lips. "A former senior brother. Just senior brother. Otherwise, don't you believe me?" Hongyu grabbed one of his palms, put it in his mouth and took a bite, staring at him angrily. Su Ming looked away, looked at the red tooth marks on his hand, and couldn't help but smile. "It used to look like a puppy, but now it looks like a little wild cat." Hongyu poked his chest. "Were you jealous just now?" She was a little happy in her heart. Could it be that this bad guy would be jealous? Well, he often ignored her before. At that time, she didn't know how panicked she was, fearing that Su Ming wouldn't like her. Now it seems that this man is also duplicitous. Su Ming shook his head. "No. He denies it." Hongyu looked up at him and said, "I don't believe it." Su Ming stretched out his hand to cover her eyes, feeling the tingling sensation of her long eyelashes trembling gently in the palm of his hand. Then he leaned over and held the blush. Woo! A few minutes later, Hongyu's cheeks turned red, and she gently hit his chest with her hands. "I can't breathe." Su Ming let her go, stretched out his hand to wipe away a drop of water from the corner of her mouth, then turned back, looked at the sky in the distance, and said lightly, "Does he know about your cultivation?" "You know, his master also covets Feng Qingling's physique and wants to use Feng Qingling as the cauldron for him to break through to the spiritual realm. But since I took him away, he can only worry." The two of them were talking intimately. But he didn't realize that behind a bush not far away, a disciple of the Shenyun sect was looking here with a blank face. He looked at Su Ming and Hongyu's intimate appearance as if there was no one around, and he was horrified. My three views were about to be overturned, and my eyes were full of disbelief. Kaifeng's senior brother Su Ming. There is also a goddess-like figure in the hearts of countless disciples, Elder Hongyu. They actually. The disciple's body was trembling with shock. When he saw the always cool and noble Elder Hongyu blushing shyly in Su Ming's arms, his eyes were not only shocked, but also filled with deep envy and jealousy. The other side. Su Ming glanced at the grass without leaving any trace. He raised the corner of his mouth, then took Hongyu's shoulders and turned around to leave. Hongyu was confused. Don't you want to kill him? No need, no one will believe him anyway. I'm with you openly, why can't I let others know? Hongyu stared at him aggrievedly. Su Ming touched her head and said, there is someone who hasn't come yet. It won't be fun if his identity is revealed now. At the same time, outside the Shenyang sect, on the edge of the Beiwang Mountains. Zhanyang was flying past here quickly. In the hall just now, he had sensed Du Kanghai's weak aura. The leader of the Shenyang sect was obviously seriously injured. That old guy Qi Yuan even lied to him that he was practicing. What a waste of practice, I really thought he could be fooled so easily. Du Kanghai was now seriously injured. The Shenyang sect directly lost one of its top combat power. The Xuantian sword sect has been competing with the Shenyang sect for the Spirit Stone Mine, and now they want to see what Qi Yuan can do to compete with them. As long as this matter is reported to the master, the Spirit Stone Vein at the junction of the north and the south will definitely be in the possession of Xuantian sword sect from today on. As for Hongyu and Feng Qingling, the next time he comes to Shenyang sect, he will definitely take these two people back. At that time, he will not be as soft-hearted as today. Zhanyang hurried on his way. But he didn't notice that on a big tree below, a figure in black was waiting for his arrival leisurely with his legs crossed. Aha! A flash of spiritual light rose into the sky and exploded in front of Zhanyang, forcing him to stop. Zhanyang looked down with a solemn face. I am the chief disciple of Xuantian sword sect. Who are you? Why are you blocking my way? His face looked a little ugly, because he couldn't see through the cultivation level of the person below. The words fell. On the huge ancient tree below, the man in black stood up slowly, twisted his neck, and then, an evil smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I want your head, Zhanyang. Boom. The next moment, the figure of the man in black disappeared strangely. Zhanyang could only see an afterimage rushing up like lightning, and then, a palm filled with violent thunder held down his head. This moment, with death hanging over his heart, Zhanyang didn't even have the courage to draw his sword in front of this man in black. His forehead was covered with cold sweat. Looking at the thundering palm so close to him, his body had stiffened and he did not dare to move at all. Who are you? Finally, Zhanyang used all his strength and trembled to spit out these words. He didn't know when the northern wasteland had such a young and powerful man. He had never seen this person before, and he was not the same as the other four. He couldn't understand why the elder and deacon of a large sect would attack him. Zhanyang finished speaking. The man in black in front of him grinned. Didn't I hear you talk about the Xuantian mirror just now? I really want to get such a treasure to play with. Zhanyang's eyes widened. You are one of those mysterious strong men with powerful auras sensed by Xuantian mirror. Smart, but it's a pity that you offended someone you shouldn't have offended. The man in black squeezed his palm, and thunder condensed in his palm. The violent thunder instantly invaded Jian Yang's head and destroyed his sea of consciousness. Zhanyang's face was full of pain, and he struggled. Don't kill me, who have I offended? I can apologize, I can compensate. At this moment, his brain was running rapidly. When he thought of all the people he had offended, after excluding them one by one, only Hongyu was left. Zhanyang finally realized. At this moment, he truly understood why Hongyu acted so fearlessly when faced with his threats. It turned out that there was such a terrifying and powerful person hiding behind her. He is not willing to give in. Laugh. His eyes were completely filled with thunder. His consciousness was dissipating little by little in the endless pain, and his eyes gradually became blurry. At last, the struggle stopped completely. The man in black loosened his palm, and the thunder in Zhanyang's eyes spread rapidly, completely controlling his entire consciousness. Zhanyang stared blankly at the man in black in front of him. Go back to the sect and bring me the Xuantian mirror to the Shenyang sect. Tell me that Qi Yuan asked you to go there. Anyone who stops you will be killed. The man in black ordered. Zhanyang replied blankly. Yes. After answering, his spiritual energy surged and he rushed directly towards Xuantian's sword sect. Wait for Zhanyang's figure to disappear. Yi Wuyun let out a breath, looked in the direction of Shenyang sect, and said with a curl of his lips, I don't know how long the boss will continue to play, but the ancestor of the ancient demon sect of Central Continent came to him several times. He wants to propose marriage on behalf of the witch from their sect, and we can't refuse on behalf of the boss. He touched his chin, I don't know if the boss likes it or not. It is said that the witch seems to have quite a talent. Forget it, leave this matter to Sister Lang, I guess she won't agree. Yi Wuyun murmured to himself, and finally his body disappeared into the space little by little and disappeared. And in a mountain range not far from the edge of the northern wasteland, on a deserted road. Under the scorching sun, a young man in gray clothes with a huge black sword on his back reached out to lift the gray robe covering his head and raised his head slightly, revealing the handsome young face under the gray robe. The Shenyang mountain is right in front of us. The thing that Master mentioned is in the Shenyang sect. No matter what, I will get it, practice and grow, and avenge everyone in my Lin family. The young man's eyes were full of perseverance, and underneath that perseverance was also filled with endless hatred, but then he sighed. Before his death, my father once said that my mother's family was outside the northern wilderness, in a place called the Central Continent. My mother's family is also one of the top forces. They took my mother away 10 years ago, causing my family of 3 to be separated for 10 years. Father, you can rest assured in Tianjiling. After the child joins the Shenyang sect, he will stand out at the All Souls Festival in the deserted city and will definitely attract the attention of those people. When the time comes, people will naturally come to the door. I will definitely find my mother and bring her back. Buzz. The black sword behind the young man flashed for a moment, and then an illusory figure condensed behind him, and an ethereal voice also reached the young man's ears. This time is a blessing in disguise. If it weren't for that man's pursuit, we wouldn't have fallen into the relic space of a powerful god emperor, and you wouldn't have been able to obtain the lifelong inheritance of that god emperor. This illusory figure is an old man with white hair. He caressed his long beard, and looked at the young man with cloudy eyes with joy. My disciple himself is a genius in this world, and now he has inherited the inheritance of a god emperor and has made a breakthrough. Nirvana and promotion to the spirit master are just around the corner. Haha, a 19-year-old spirit master can be regarded as one of the top geniuses in the Central Continent where monsters gather. I am not bad luck this time. Master, the young man frowned, where in the world is Central Continent? The old man thought for a while and replied calmly, that is a place hundreds and thousands of times larger than the Northern Wilderness Territory. In the Northern Spiritual Realm, it is also called the Central Continent Territory. It is the largest place in the entire Northern Spiritual Realm. In the core realm, any one of those forces can crush the so-called 5 major sects in the Northern Wilderness region. To put it simply, it is the center of the entire Northern Spirit Realm. Hear the words. The young man's eyes were filled with longing. If I trample all such top sects under my feet, I will be called the pinnacle of the world. By then, I will naturally be able to avenge my father, and I can also compete with my mother's family and bring my mother back. Quote. If you want to reach that point, you are still far away. At the very least, you have to be promoted to the God Emperor first. The old man shook his head and smiled, I have no doubt about your talent. I am just afraid of the mysterious person who takes action against your family. He will also come to cause trouble for you. The young man's eyes were cold and he said with hatred, I don't care who that person is or which force he comes from. When I grow up, I will kill him. I won't even let go of the forces behind him. Well, genius is not scary. What is scary is the genius who has enough time to grow up. What I am most worried about now is that he will not give you a chance to grow up. He might even be someone sent by your mother's family to kill him. Silence you. The young man's face darkened. The old man consoled him. So, the most important thing for you now is to improve your strength. First go to the Shenyang sect, complete the training of the pure yang body, and be promoted to the spirit master. Then you can find a way to contact that heavenly peak and use it to if you win the treasure. It will be your biggest opportunity to be promoted to the God Emperor in the future, and you must not miss it. The young man nodded heavily and looked up at the mountains, the countless huge peaks that towered into the sky. In his eyes, there was determination, longing, and deep hatred. By the way, I sensed several powerful auras in the sky above Shenyan sect not long ago. They should be strong men who do not belong to the northern wasteland. I don't know why they appeared here. After you join the sect, you'd better be careful. Keeping a low profile, I have a hunch that this period may not be peaceful. Master, don't worry. I still understand the truth that even if a tree is as beautiful as a tree, it will be destroyed by the wind. I'm not that stupid young man who is 17 or 18 years old. I know what should be done and what should not be done. The old man nodded happily. Then I'll be relieved as a teacher. Elder brother, Master asked you to go to the main hall of Kaifeng to find her. A male disciple shouted softly outside the forest. The sound spread into the forest and was heard by Feng Qingling. She stopped the spirit pattern pen in her hand and looked up. The male disciple also saw Feng Qingling's petite figure. He frowned slightly, thinking that the sect master had said that this woman had an evil cultivator's constitution. Unless she practiced that kind of evil cultivation method, she would never be able to open her spiritual veins in her lifetime. Wouldn't such a person be harming the senior brother by staying with him? The senior brother is now the first person among the younger generation of his sect to advance to the Nirvana realm. The master must have high hopes for him. It must be this one. The little witch seduced the senior brother. Seeing Feng Qingling's clear, dark eyes looking towards him, he admitted that this witch was indeed very attractive, and could even be compared with the most beautiful junior sister Mu Qingyan in his heart. At this moment, for some reason, the male disciple felt an inexplicable desire for protection when he looked at Feng Qingling's delicate and soft appearance. He stared at Feng Qingling, his eyes slightly glazed over. It turns out that the witch was born so beautiful. Consciously losing his composure, the male disciple hurriedly coughed, pretending to be indifferent, looking at Feng Qingling, but his tone softened unknowingly. Isn't senior brother here? Why are you alone? Feng Qingling glanced at this senior brother, and then she shook her head slightly. The male disciple's face darkened. I'm talking to you, are you mute? Feng Qingling glanced at him doubtfully and said in a clear voice, I don't know you, why should I talk to you? The male disciple choked. He said in a strange way, my name is Feng Qi, and I am also a disciple of Kaifeng. You can call me senior brother Feng from now on. Feng Qingling thought for a while and shook her head calmly. I only have one senior brother, not you. Although she always had a weak temperament, her expression was always in a very calm state when facing others except Su Ming. The male disciple narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at Feng Qingling's innocent and beautiful face with a hint of charm. He took 2 steps forward and walked into the forest. Let me ask you, what is your name? Feng Qingling ignored him, put away the spirit pattern pen and turned around to enter the house. Feng Qi gritted his teeth in his heart. I don't know why you appear next to the eldest brother, but the sect master said that you are not the right way, and the eldest brother is the one who will succeed the sect leader in the future. You can only stay with the eldest brother. It will be a disaster. The words fell. Feng Qingling paused in her steps, staring at the ground, biting her lips tightly, and squeezed the palm of the spirit pattern pen, unconsciously using a lot of strength, and the palm of her hand turned white. Feng Qi curled his lips from behind and said, you and senior brother are from 2 different worlds. If you are self-aware, I advise you to leave senior brother as soon as possible. Otherwise, if there is any bad influence on the sect in the future, we will not do anything about it. I'll let you go. Feng Qingling's cold attitude made Feng Qi feel a little angry and threatened her coldly. Even if he, Feng Qi, is not as good as his senior brother in Kaifeng, he is still an extremely outstanding presence among many disciples. Giving face to this little demon girl is considered a respectable one, but in the end, this little demon girl doesn't give him any face. The other side. Feng Qingling took a breath of cold air. At this moment, a scarlet murderous intention surged out of her delicate eyes. Between her eyebrows, an ancient mark filled with rich black energy appeared faintly. Snapped. The next second, a palm gently pressed on her shoulder. The gentle force in the hand was mixed with a gentle spiritual power, which flowed into her body, making her eyes clear again. Feng Qingling turned her head and saw Su Ming's face with a gentle smile. She suddenly felt aggrieved. She just wanted to stay by her senior brother's side. She had never thought of harming her senior brother. Why didn't she want to see those people? Except for Su Ming, no one in the entire sect was willing to treat her well, and now she wanted nothing more. As long as Su Ming cared and loved her, she would be satisfied. She didn't want to end up with her. What little you have has been taken away by others. Senior brother. Feng Qingling called him weakly. Su Ming smiled and said, you have been practicing all morning. Are you hungry? These are some of the most delicious foods in Lingshan Hall. I went to buy them for you to see if you like them. He handed Feng Qingling the food box that still had a strong aroma in his hand, and couldn't help but touch her little head with one hand. For some reason, Su Ming found that this girl's head was particularly comfortable to touch, making people feel like they couldn't put it down. Feng Qingling looked straight at him, listening to his gentle voice and seeing the gentle smile full of concern on his face. Deep in her heart, this moment seemed to be filled with something. The whole world, it seems that only his shadow is left. Su Ming tapped her little head and said, why are you dazed? Go in and eat quickly. You have just started practicing. Physical nutrition is very important. You can't skip 3 meals a day. For cultivators, true fasting can only be achieved after returning to the Yuan realm. The need for food can be supplemented by the spiritual power in the body, but before returning to the Yuan state, food is still indispensable. Feng Qingling nodded obediently and entered the room obediently. Su Ming turned around and glanced at Feng Qi, who was standing not far away. He walked to a nearby stone platform and sat down. He stretched out his hand and touched a half-finished spiritual formation pattern on the stone platform. He spoke in a calm voice, outgoing. Junior brother Feng rarely comes to my place once. Why don't you come over and discuss this spiritual formation with me? Feng Qi touched his nose in embarrassment. What did he know about spiritual formations? In his heart, he admired Su Ming, the senior brother, even more. The path to the spiritual formations was much more difficult than training. He was in the spiritual formations. He doesn't have any talent, and he can't even understand the most basic structure of the spiritual formation. Elder brother, the master has summoned you. Feng Qi did not forget his purpose and said with his hands raised towards Su Ming. Su Ming smiled lightly, it's okay, let her wait. Feng Qi, sure enough, he is still a familiar senior brother, and he doesn't even look down on such a stunning beauty like his master. Feng Qi sighed inwardly and reminded softly, Master told me that I have something important to tell senior brother. Su Ming gently picked it up with his fingers, and an obscure spiritual formation pattern condensed on the stone platform. Then he searched around and found a short wooden stick. He placed the stick on the stone platform, and it suddenly became extremely bright and dazzling. The light flickered. Feng Qi was completely stunned. He looked at the spiritual formation in front of Su Ming that exuded a violent aura, and felt only waves of horror in his heart. He had a feeling that if the spiritual formation was released towards him, he might be in the middle stage of the Guiyuan realm. Because, it will be wiped out in an instant. The key point is that the senior brother built such a terrifying spiritual array with only a short wooden stick. If this were revealed, how would those people who couldn't build a spiritual array with countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures feel? Feng Qi suddenly discovered that this senior brother was becoming more and more mysterious in his mind. They also had a spiritual formation master in Kaifeng who would usually go to Chunyuan Hall to teach. But compared to his senior brother, that spiritual formation master is not even the slightest bit worse. Feng Qi glanced at the house behind him, and Feng Qingling's face appeared in his mind. He couldn't let this witch harm his senior brother. After thinking about it, he couldn't help but remind him, senior brother. Big brother. However, the words were not spoken yet. A crisp shout came from behind Feng Qi. When he heard this extremely familiar voice, he was startled. When he turned around to look, the look in his eyes instantly became extremely complicated. Junior sister. Why did she come here? Doesn't she hate eldest brother the most? How could she take the initiative to come to eldest brother's residence to look for him? After Feng Qi came to his senses, he quickly said hello with a smile, little junior sister. The person who came was none other than the junior sister Mu Qingyan who used to hate Su Ming very much. Today, she was wearing a simple and clean white gauze skirt with a lifelike Bixia phoenix embroidered on the skirt. She was standing there with her hands behind her back as if she was secretly holding something. Feng Qi's eyes suddenly looked straight. He knew that his junior sister was very beautiful, but he never thought that she would be so stunningly beautiful today. A lock of beautiful hair fluttering slightly, slender willow eyebrows, a pair of big black eyes with a sweet smile, a straight nose, slightly red cheeks, pretty lips, and that the jade-like snow-white skin looks as if it can be broken by a blow, so beautiful. Her little face is as crystal clear as jade, and her cheeks are rosy, which adds a bit of delicate beauty. She is no longer the cold and indifferent person she used to be that people were afraid to approach. Fang Qi couldn't believe it. At this moment, the little junior sister seemed to have returned to the lively and cute look she had when she first entered the sect. Little junior sister, he murmured again. However, Mu Qingyan didn't even look at him, let alone talk to him. She raised her eyes. In her bright and clear eyes, only the shadow of Su Ming was reflected in her pupils. There was a hint of smile on her delicate lips. Her sweet smile is as charming as a peach blossom fairy. Under the white gauze skirt, the slender waist outlined a perfect curve. She walked towards Su Ming step by step, with 3,000 blue silk slipping down her chest, and the hem of her skirt was fluttering in the wind. Finally, he walked up to Su Ming, bent slightly, came closer to him, looked at him with a smile, and whispered softly in a firm tone, "I have thought it through, no matter how many times you reject me, senior brother, I will approach you without hesitation." The alluring fragrance of the girl's body, accompanied by the catkins floating in the wind, entered Su Ming's heart little by little. He could clearly see the two sides of Mu Qingyan's cheeks and the slender and white jade neck behind her. At the same time as he said this, the whole body turned red, bright red and white, which was really beautiful. Su Ming was slightly startled. Then, with the expression on his face unchanged, he glanced at Mu Qingyan lightly and said calmly, "It's somewhat inappropriate for my junior sister to come to my place alone. I'd better come here as little as possible in the future. After all, we are not familiar with each other." Quote. Still in a cold tone. Mu Qingyan felt depressed, and she bit her lip lightly, "No matter what you say, I won't leave anyway. From now on, I will come every day and accompany you every day, whether it is cultivation or whatever you do, I just want to stay with you." Fang Qi on the side was stunned. He seriously doubted whether he was dazzled, why the roles of the junior sister and the senior brother were suddenly reversed. In the past, it was the senior brother who pestered and bullied the junior sister, and the junior sister had no time to hide from him. How could he be like a sheep now? "Huko, come to him personally." Mu Qingyan stared at Su Ming faintly. She took out the thing hidden behind her. It was a Gu spirit porridge. She had spent a long time cooking it for Su Ming herself. This was the first time she had cooked it for a person. "Man, get your hands dirty." Ignoring Su Ming's cold gaze, she put the porridge on the stone table, then cleared the place next to Su Ming, rolled up her skirt, sat next to him with her legs bent, and helped him clear the things around the stone table. After cleaning them all, I finally opened the porridge lid, and a rich aroma overflowed. "Brother, this porridge can warm and nourish the body. My mother taught me how to make it when I was at home. It was difficult to learn at that time. It took me a long time to learn it. My mother said that after learning, I should give myself the best people who care do." Su Ming shook his head lightly, interrupted her, and said deliberately, "Did you find the wrong person?" Mu Qingyan's palm froze while she was shaking the porridge. She didn't care how cold Su Ming's attitude towards her was. Then she poured a small bowl of porridge, blew it gently, and then handed it to Su Ming, looking at it expectantly. She looked at him and said softly, "Is it okay to just have a taste? Or, if you don't want to move, I can feed you." Su Ming glanced down and said, "I have no appetite." Mu Qingyan's little hands trembled slightly. She had long been prepared to be rejected, but the loss and discomfort in her heart were inevitable. "Then I'll put it here for you." "Unnecessary." Su Ming stood up calmly and glanced at Fang Qi, who was staring blankly at him across from him. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. "Junior brother Fang, didn't you say that master has something to do with me?" Fang Qi nodded blankly, "Yes. Senior brother, master said she is waiting for you in the main hall of Kaifeng." Su Ming nodded, "Then let's leave now." He turned around and left without even looking at Mu Qingyan, causing the little girl's bright eyes to instantly dim. Looking at Su Ming's leaving figure, the corners of Mu Qingyan's eyes turned slightly red. She felt depressed and even wanted to cry. Does the senior brother hate her so much now? He didn't even want to spend more time with her, willing. It wasn't until Su Ming's back completely disappeared from her eyes that Fang Qi in front turned around, looked at her with a smile, and said hello again. Little junior sister, master has something to do with senior brother now, you should go back first. Mu Qingyan raised her head indifferently, her eyes staring at Fang Qi turned cold and indifferent for a moment. I'm not going anywhere, I'm just waiting here for him to come back. Fang Qi, he probed softly. Elder brother, has he done something to you again? Before he finished speaking, Fang Qi suddenly felt a chill coming from the bottom of his heart. Looking at Mu Qingyan's extremely cold eyes, although they were still beautiful, the look in them was a little too cold, which actually made him feel uncomfortable in his heart. He couldn't help but tremble slightly, and hurriedly shut up and stopped talking. He even suspected that if he said one more word, the junior sister would attack him mercilessly. When Su Ming came to the main hall, several female disciples happened to come out of it. When they saw him, they hurriedly stepped aside to greet him. Su Ming glanced at a few people and didn't know how these junior sisters grew up. Each of them had a mature figure, and they didn't look like girls of 17 or 18 years old. Several female disciples were stared at by Su Ming. They felt that the senior brother's evil gaze was not like that of a gentleman. Their pretty faces turned slightly cold. The senior brother was indeed the senior brother and had not changed at all. You used to bully junior sister Mu like that, do you still want to bully them now? A few people seemed a little resistant and moved a little away from Su Ming. Su Ming touched his chin and smiled, don't worry, I don't eat people. How strange. Several people didn't believe him at all. Su Ming took a step forward with a smile, and the corners of his lips twitched slightly. Junior sisters, I invite you to listen to music tonight. It is said that there are several first-class musicians coming from Kangcheng down the mountain. Let's listen to the music, have a drink and have a chat. How is life? Elder brother, we have to practice. Several people refused righteously. Su Ming curled his lips, we can't all practice together. Besides, it won't work if yin is strong and yang is weak. You just need me to compliment you. Let's practice together. If you have a senior brother who loves you, we will definitely get twice the result with half the effort. A few innocent little girls could not understand the meaning of Su Ming's words. They just thought that this senior brother was going to pester them. After seeing the ceremony, they left in a panic. Su Ming shook his head and smiled. Ding, the host's behavior matches the villain's setting. Congratulations to the host for receiving the 500 villain point reward. It's simple, get 500 villain points. Su Ming sometimes wanted to be a good person, but the system didn't allow it. Moreover, he had been a good person for 5 lives in the past 5 lives, but he didn't end up well. He looked away and was about to step into the hall. It's a good time to listen to the music, Fangwashuiyu. They don't want to accompany you. Sister, I have some time tonight. A delicate laughter came. Su Ming looked up. Qin Ru's round and mature body appeared in front of her. Wrapped in a long purple skirt, there was a pair of snow-white and slender legs. There was a purple bell hanging on her ankle. As she walked, the purple bell emitted crisp and sweet sound. She walked up to Su Ming, stretched out her hands to tuck her hair. Her watery eyes stared straight at Su Ming, her red lips slightly raised. How about it? Little brother, sister is going to listen to the music with you, you can also just promise my sister something. Su Ming smelled the mature and attractive feminine fragrance on her body, and glanced behind her, and sure enough he saw Bai Qingshan walking out with a cold face. Master. He smiled slightly. Qin Ru turned around and said, why are you in such a hurry to come out? You are afraid that I will eat him. Bai Qingshan said angrily. According to seniority, he has to call you aunt. Can you please behave yourself? What a sister and brother. Su Ming called out to save face, Aunt Qin. Qin Ru immediately rolled her eyes at him and said angrily, don't call me Aunt Qin, call me sister. As he said that, he looked back at Bai Qingshan and said, it's okay if you admit that you are an old woman, but don't take me with you. Sister, I'm still young. Su Ming silently estimated that at this time, Qin Ru's age should be around 29 years old, which is indeed not too old. Moreover, this kind of mature woman is the most flavorful and truly knows how to care for others. He shook his head and thought about where he was. Qin Ru was Bai Qingshan's best friend. If he attacked her for a villain mission and Bai Qingshan knew about it, she would probably be really angry at that time. Su Ming had no relatives since he was a child. Bai Qingshan brought him back from a mass grave and raised him. Therefore, it can be said that this master gave him a chance to survive. Even now, I still respect and appreciate her in my heart. In the past, he had to contradict Bai Qingshan because of the villain mission, but in his heart, he always regarded her as an elder, because if Bai Qingshan hadn't appeared, he would have died in a mass grave long ago and there would be no 6 reincarnations. Bai Qingshan glanced at Su Ming and saw that this guy's eyes were always fixed on Qinru. She suddenly became angry and stretched out her hand to pinch his ears. What are you looking at? Su Ming, he hissed lightly, I didn't look. Do you think I'm blind? She is your Aunt Qin. Do you know that usually you just look at those little junior sisters? But now they are so unruly, do you still want to put her in solitary confinement? Look at how boring those little junior sisters are. Bai Qingshan blushed with anger. Shut up. Su Ming felt funny in his heart. Seeing the angry look on his beautiful master's face, he reached out to take her jade hand and patted the back of her hand gently. Master, don't be angry, the disciples will listen to you. Qinru joked at the side. Xiao Xuanxuan, look at how obedient your apprentice is and how he is not as arrogant as you said. I think he is quite good. He is handsome, gentle and polite. If you don't want him, why don't you just give it to me? Bai Qingshan turned back and glared at her. You have a beautiful idea. Qinru curled her lips and stared at Su Ming. Little brother, don't worry about it. Your master is getting older. There are always a few days every month when he gets angry easily. You are about to be 20 this year. Do you have someone you like? A girl. Su Ming gave her a strange look. Qinru raised her eyebrows and said, Sister, how about I introduce you to someone? Bai Qingshan grabbed Su Ming's arm and took him into the main hall. He gave Qinru a hard look and said, I told you, I will not agree to that matter. Qinru stared at her back and said angrily, You are just envious and jealous that my disciple is younger and more beautiful than you, and is more suitable for him than you. You, an old woman, have no self-awareness at all. Su Ming turned his head and glanced at Bai Qingshan, who was very close at hand. Master. Bai Qingshan's cheeks were slightly rosy, and she said angrily, Don't ask anything, you are a child, why do you know so much? Su Ming, child, he felt weird, he was not young at all now. Let me ask you, do you really like Mu Qingyan? Bai Qingshan looked at him with beautiful eyes. Su Ming shook his head, I don't like it. Then when you? He shrugged, it's just for fun. Now that I'm tired of playing, of course I have no interest anymore. Bai Qingshan's plump breasts rose and fell slightly. She stretched out her jade hand and twisted Su Ming's arm hard. Is this what I taught you since you were a child? As a man, you don't even have the most basic sense of responsibility. How could you do this after so many years? Teach a troublesome disciple like you. Su Ming was speechless. Just now I said he was a child. Master, something is wrong today. Also, is the girl who is following you today a disciple of Hongyu? It seems so. How did you end up with her? I'm teaching her how to practice. Bai Qingshan snorted coldly. Hongyu doesn't know how to teach herself. She still needs you to teach her. Do you know that she will harm you in the future? Su Ming smiled lightly. It doesn't matter. Bai Qingshan. Her face turned red with anger. This fool had always been angry with her. In the main hall, Bai Qingshan brought a white token to Su Ming. Qinru was reluctant from behind. I told you, just lend him to me for 2 months. It's not like he won't pay it back. Can't I give it back to you again in 2 months? No. Bai Qingshan glanced at her coldly and handed the token to Su Ming. Su Ming weighed the token in his hand. Is this the token of Master's family? Bai Qingshan nodded. The Bai family White Dragon Order. The person who holds the order can become the Bai family Dragon Riding Guard. If you don't want to practice in Shenyang sect, I can recommend you to join the Dragon Riding Guard. In this way, at least he can stay away from Mu Qingyan and Feng Qingling, and it can also make her feel at ease. Dragoon Guard. Su Ming shook his head and returned the token to her. It's boring. I don't want to go. Bai Qingshan gritted his teeth. You don't listen to Master. These are 2 different things. Su Ming supported his waist, walked to the side and sat down at Bai Qingshan's seat, and said with a leisurely expression, I've been too tired recently. I don't want to go anywhere, I just want to stay in the sect. Take some leisure time and take good care of yourself first. Bai Qingshan was silent for a moment. White Dragon Guard, that is an identity that many people would envy. It can be said that becoming a white dragon guard means a lifetime of glory and endless enjoyment of wealth and splendor. She also only had one recommended spot. She originally wanted to give the spot to Su Ming, but was rejected. And the reason for his refusal was that he was too tired. This apprentice has been messing around for such a long time. Bai Qingshan doesn't know what to say about him. He gave him such a precious place and wanted him to experience it, but he didn't cherish it. Qin Ru said with a seductive smile on the side, "How about going to the Purple Ling sect with my sister? The junior sisters in the sect are very enthusiastic. You can relax when you are tired from practicing." Su Ming raised his head and looked at Qin Ru. Is he serious about relaxing? Bai Qingshan gave Qin Ru a hard look and said, he is not allowed to go anywhere in the past 2 months. Qin Ru rolled her eyes. Double standard girl, didn't you just say that you wanted him to join the White Dragon Guard? What's the matter with my Purple Ling sect for fun? You are just stingy, and you couldn't bear to borrow me for 2 months. You have been blind for so many years. Sisterly love. Quote. So what if you don't want to give up? How can I still let you harm my disciples? Am I causing harm to him? You're not happy to find him a well-behaved and obedient wife. You just don't want me to do well, and you just want to keep him for your own use. Now you have one disciple at a time, and you don't even know how to scream at night. How disgusting. Su Ming. Ahem, sorry, I don't understand anything. Bai Qingshan's cheeks gradually became crimson, her delicate body trembled slightly, and she glared at Qin Ru. Normally, she would just talk about it in private, but now she said it in front of Su Ming, which made her, as a master, lose her face. Turning his head to look over, he saw Su Ming's strange eyes. Don't listen to her nonsense. She tried to argue. Su Ming nodded calmly. Master, don't worry, I'm still young and don't understand anything. Bai Qingshan. Qin Ru covered her mouth and chuckled, her branches trembling with laughter, and she did not forget to tease Su Ming. Brother Su, do you really not understand or do you pretend not to understand? If you really don't understand, sister can teach you. Your teacher, I don't have much experience in this area, so I probably won't be able to teach you. Qin Ru, that's enough. What do you mean I have no experience? Bah, you are an old woman who has been single for 30 years. You have experience. If you dare to teach my disciples badly, let's see if I will let you go. Su Ming didn't expect that. As we chatted, his painting style gradually became strange. He glanced at the Beilong Ling beside him, which was put down by Bai Qingshan, and reached out to take it. His hands were cold. The Bai family dragon riding guard is the most famous army in the Northern Wilderness Territory, and it is also the real heritage of the Bai family. Not long after, the 3 major families in Wangcheng competed for dominance. When the Bai family dragon riding guard appeared, they instantly shocked countless strong men. But according to the original plot development, shouldn't the master give the White Dragon order to the male protagonist Lin Changfeng? This is also a key point for the male protagonist to pretend to be a slap in the face. Joined the Dragon Cavalry Guards and was ridiculed by the Bai family everywhere. During the mission, he saved countless dragon knights from fire and water, and became the object of worship by those people. Finally, during the struggle for hegemony between the 3 major families in Wangcheng, he led the Dragon Knights to help the Bai family defeat the other 2 families, shocking the entire northern wasteland. Since then, his reputation has skyrocketed, and he has emerged at the All Souls Festival in Wangcheng. He single-handedly defeated all the young geniuses from the other 4 major families, and also competed with the elders of the 4 major sects. Then he killed several elders from other sects, completely helping the Shenyang sect stabilize its position as the leader of the 5 major sects, and became the most perfect white dragon prince in the eyes of countless young girls in the northern wasteland. In the first 5 lives, compared with the male protagonist Lin Changfeng, Su Ming, the senior brother, had long been forgotten by everyone and seemed ordinary, even though he almost risked his life when the Shenyang sect was in the most critical moment. To protect the sect, unfortunately, in the end, the crisis was resolved, and the male protagonist's name will always be covered by his. Holding the Beilong token gently in his palm, Su Ming raised his eyes and looked at Bai Qingshan. Master, please put this token with me first. Bai Qingshan frowned. Don't you want to go? Maybe I'll change my mind. He would definitely not go to the Dragon Riding Guard, but he could let Lin Changfeng go on. This time he wanted to see how the male protagonist could show off in front of him. The protagonist is amazing. Hey, who said they villains can only be the stepping stones for the protagonists? Bai Qingshan hesitated for a moment, then nodded lightly. This is a good training opportunity. If you go, you can also hone your temperament, which will be of great benefit to you in the future. Su Ming pursed his lips. I know. After leaving the main hall, Su Ming's figure flashed, appearing on the top of a side peak. He put his hands behind his back, letting the wind roar around him, and looked forward calmly. Buzz. The space there was torn apart, and a huge space vortex formed, as if it was connected to another world. And in that dark and heart-stopping space vortex, an indescribable sense of oppression enveloped it. The whirlpool surged, and countless light spots mixed with the low roar of dragon beasts resounded. Then, about thousands of giant dragons whose bodies were as silver, wrapped with violent thunder and with thunder wings on their backs, passed through the space vortex, floating there quietly. It was only at this time that I could really see clearly that on the backs of these thousands of dragon beasts, there was a knight in silver armor sitting. They were holding the god-killing dragon halberd. Although they were silent, they exuded the kind of killing energy from their bodies. The aura of cutting caused the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth to be instantly dispersed. In front of all the knights in silver armor, there is a white-haired girl with dragon horns. The silver armor on her body outlines her exquisite and perfect curves. She stands on a snow dragon, holds a dragon halberd, and has a pair of snowflake eyes. Looking at Su Ming, his temperament was cold and pure, and his beautiful face made people unable to take their eyes away. The air was silent for a moment. The coldness in the white-haired girl's eyes quickly melted away, and she respectfully clasped her fists towards Su Ming. Yutian Longqi, Leng Shi comes to see you. I am reporting to your majesty that the emperor of Tianwu dynasty has been captured. His subordinates killed Emperor Wu, captured Queen Tianwu alive, and imprisoned her in the imperial palace, waiting for your majesty's fate. Su Ming hasn't spoken yet. In mind. Ding. The host created his own power, Yutian Palace, slaughtered the Tianwu dynasty, imprisoned Queen Tianwu and her children, Wu Luo, the son of destiny in Xuanlong domain, and Wu Yao, the daughter of destiny. The resentment value towards the host is +99. Congratulations to the host for completing the villain mission. Your name as a villain will be known throughout the Black Dragon realm. You will be rewarded with 10,000 villain points and an epic sign in opportunity. The Yutian Dragon Riders. This is a terrifying army that became famous in the Xuanlong domain a few months ago. Together with the Yutian Palace, it has become a taboo-like existence in the entire Xuanlong domain. As long as these three words are mentioned, all the forces in Xuanlong domain will only feel deep fear and trembling in their hearts. In 3 months, the 9 great sects of the Xuanlong domain were slaughtered and countless top geniuses were captured. Even the Tianwu dynasty, which had dominated the Xuanlong domain for hundreds of years, was attacked by the Yutian Dragon Cavalry. Fall. Emperor Wu was beheaded and the queen was captured. The entire Xuanlong domain was shaken, and everyone was in danger. Nowadays, the Yutian Palace has dominated the Black Dragon territory, and no one under the Yutian Dragon Cavalry dares to have the slightest intention of resistance. The Black Dragon territory, like the Northern Wilderness territory, is a realm within the Northern Spirit Realm Nuo territory. However, the Black Dragon territory is located in the abyss of the Black Sea, only 1 sea away from the central continent. Whether it is resources or strength, I don't know how many times stronger than the Northern Wilderness territory. Those forces among them are naturally not comparable to the Northern Wilderness territory. At the same time as the rise of Yutian Temple, one name is also known by all the powerful people in the Black Dragon domain and even in the central continent, and that is the mysterious palace master who dominates the Yutian Dragon Rider, the Yutian Demon Lord. It is said that this mysterious palace master only appeared once in Xuanlong domain, and that time, the ancestor of the God Emperor who protected the 9 divine sects was brutally killed. You must know that in this era where saints are not born, the God Emperor is the most powerful existence, and even the God Emperor can be killed. One can imagine how shocked the strong men in the Xuanlong domain must be at that time. The name Yutian Demon Lord has also penetrated deeply into everyone's hearts, making the entire Xuanlong domain powerhouse breathless. Now, the Tianwu dynasty has fallen, and the Xuanlong domain has been completely controlled by the Yutian Palace. All the forces have chosen to submit, because they all know that if they do not submit, the only thing that will greet them in the end is death. While Udian Temple is attacking various forces, it is also collecting the top geniuses among these forces. Some of the hidden families even take the initiative to send their talented disciples to Udian Palace for self-protection. The overlord of the Central Continent, the ancient Emperor clan, once sent the powerful God Emperor to the mysterious dragon territory to inquire about it. However, after one night, the God Emperor left the Black Dragon territory, and then the ancient Emperor clan summoned the entire Central Continent. From then on, the mysterious dragon territory returned to the heaven. The palace is in charge. Just like when the Lingmen emerged in the Central Continent, the powerful God Emperor of the ancient Emperor clan also boarded the Lingmen. Not long after, he announced that the Lingmen would divide the territory and establish himself as the king. Even the ancient Emperor clan chose to give in. It is conceivable what a terrifying background there must be behind such forces as Udian Temple and Lingmen. The most bizarre thing is that one of these two forces has risen in the Central Continent and the other has dominated the Xuanlong territory. What they have in common is that point, that is, the rise time is almost the same. And, whether it is the master of Lingmen or the master of Udian Palace, almost no one has seen their true faces. In the hearts of all strong men, these two people have become the biggest taboo because their methods are too excessive. Cruel and ruthless, they can be called two demons that no one dares to offend. In the sky, thunderclouds gathered. In the whirlpool of space, thousands of heavenly royal dragon riders were filled with murderous aura. The weakest auras on each of them were those in the early stage of the spiritual sovereign realm, and many of them had even reached the half-step of the God Emperor. If this group of dragon riders launches an attack, even the truly powerful God Emperor may have to avoid the edge temporarily. When Utian Longqi appeared, Su Ming had already used means to isolate the space here, so the outside world could not detect them. Your Majesty, what should we do with Queen Tianwu and her children? Should they be executed? Lang Zai's figure appeared in front of Su Ming, looking at him with great respect. The characters summoned by the system are absolutely 100% loyal to the host. When Lang Shi summoned him, he was only half a step above the level of the God Emperor. Su Ming secretly used many spiritual objects from heaven and earth for her, as well as a large number of the top spiritual stone allowed her to be promoted to the God Emperor. Lang Shi was originally an ancient dragon guard. He had the purest dragon blood and was extremely powerful. Now he was summoned by Su Ming and advanced to the realm of the God Emperor. His cultivation was even more powerful than before. Su Ming stared at the pair of silver-white dragon horns on her forehead and subconsciously reached out to touch them. They were quite smooth and felt good to the touch. Lang Zai's expressionless pretty face suddenly turned red. Deep in her usually cold heart, her heart trembled slightly. Then she quickly lowered her head and lowered her eyes, not daring to look at Su Ming again. If it had been anyone else, she would have been stabbed by her sword long ago. Thank you for your hard work. Su Ming retracted his palm and patted her shoulder. When I killed the martial emperor, you also suffered a little injury inside your body. In the future, just guard the Udian Palace for me, and go back with peace of mind. Recuperate. I obey, Lang Shi replied, then quietly raised his head to look at Su Ming, and said with some hesitation, Your Majesty, won't you go back with your subordinates? Su Ming shook his head, I still have some things to deal with here. As for Queen Tianwu and her children, they will be imprisoned in the Imperial Palace for now, and I will deal with them after I return. As you command. Lang Shi clasped her fists, then thought of something, and said hurriedly, There is news from the Queen of the Ancient Emperor clan. She wants to meet with your Majesty. Ji Yu Qingwan. Su Ming raised his eyebrows, this woman is not a good person. She can take charge of the entire Ancient Emperor clan by herself. In her hands, I don't know how many people died. She wants to see me because she feels that Udian Palace poses some threat to her status, so she wants Udian Palace to bow down and surrender. Did your Majesty see her? Now is not the time. Su Ming smiled calmly, in the future, there will be opportunities. There will indeed be a chance, but at that time, it is not certain who will be loyal to whom. With a wave of Su Ming's hand, the thunderclouds in the sky dispersed, and the space vortex also slowly dissipated. All the figures of the Imperial Dragon Riders turned into points of light and disappeared from the vortex. Lang Shi still stood in front of Su Ming. Su Ming smiled and glanced at her beautiful face. Why are you so indifferent to everyone? Lang Zai's cheeks turned red. She didn't. Go back first. Su Ming waved his hand. There is no threat in the northern wasteland, so there is no need to worry. As for the Tianwu dynasty, those in the imperial palace who have offended the Yutian palace will all be dealt with. The rest were sent to the sect and became servants. As you command. Lang Shi saluted respectfully, then turned and left. His body landed on the back of the huge snow dragon again, controlling the snow dragon and rushing into the space vortex above his head. Su Ming touched his chin. A strange idea suddenly came to his mind. In the past, he only knew girls with twin tails whose hair could be pulled and played with like reins, but he didn't know if there was anyone who could tame the dragon girl by grabbing the dragon's horns. You can try it yourself another day. The process may be a little exciting. At the foot of Shenyang Mountain, Kangcheng, Zuoafang, Zhangxiang Tower. The melodious music, with a slightly melancholy and moving melody, filled the ears of everyone in the restaurant. Second floor, corner. The young man in gray clothes took off the black long sword behind him and put it on the table. He raised his head and looked at the figure of a woman directly opposite who was holding a pipa and exuding a charming aura. At this moment, almost everyone in the restaurant was immersed in the moving music. Each one held a wine glass, but did not drink, but looked at the woman dreamingly. The music is mixed with special spiritual power. This kind of spiritual power can cause hallucinations and can also hypnotize people. It seems that there is something weird about that woman. The young man murmured to himself. This young man in gray is naturally Lin Changfang, who escaped from the pursuit of the mysterious strong man. At this moment, he has arrived at Kangcheng at the foot of Shenyang Mountain. He wanted to join the sect quickly, but his master told him that in this incense tower, there may be a chance. When he came here, he discovered that the top star of Zhangxiang Tower, the woman who was called the Oran by the people here, was not as simple as he imagined. Most of the people here were ordinary people, and they could only survive by relying on the protection of the Shenyang sect. After coming down, they do business in the city and need to hand over a certain amount of spiritual stones to Shenyang sect every year. Naturally, there are many properties belonging to the Shenyang sect in the city, but Lin Changfeng heard that the Zhangxiang Tower in Zuiyunfang was an exception. They never handed over spiritual stones to the Shenyang sect. The woman in front of her had a spiritual aura about her. Although it was very weak, Lin Changfeng could be sure that she was not an ordinary person. Sir, it's your first time to come to our place. This is the wine our boss gave you. Please use it with caution, sir. A charming woman came with a wine glass and poured wine for Lin Changfeng. Lin Changfeng thanked him softly. The woman stared at him with interest. Master, are you here alone? Lin Changfeng nodded. The enchanting woman smiled seductively. Many people are here for the first time. To be honest with you, sir, even the immortal brothers from Shenyang Mountain will come here secretly. Shenyang sect. The woman pointed to a position in the front and said with a smile, that is the immortal brother who came from Shenyang Mountain tonight. Monsters often come here to make trouble. No one can deal with those monsters. Only these immortal brothers, to protect us, so when they come to drink, we usually don't accept spiritual stones. Lin Changfeng followed her gaze and could only see the back of a cold man, who was drinking tea with his head bowed. Moreover, this man seemed to have an aura that even he could not see through. The point is, someone who comes to such a romantic place and drinks tea instead of drinking alcohol is really weird. Lin Changfeng shook his head and thanked the woman again. The woman glanced at him with a smile, then swayed her waist and left with the wine glass in hand to pour wine for the guests at other tables. Looking back, Lin Changfeng suddenly saw the woman's voluptuous body strangely appearing in his mind. He shook his head, raised the wine glass in front of him and drank it all in one gulp. Master, have you sensed something wrong? What kind of opportunity can there be in a place like this? An old echo came from his mind. My teacher will not be wrong. Pay attention to the old man in black robe in the left corner. Beside him is a little beggar with a dirty face. Lin Changfeng turned around and looked. Sure enough, as the master said, there was an old man in black robe sitting there, and next to the old man in black robe was a little beggar who was 15 or 16 years old. He nodded slightly. That's right, that old man at least has the cultivation level of the peak of Nirvana realm. The little beggar next to him has no spiritual veins, but he is born with a fairy constitution, which is the top furnace that all cultivators like most, constitution. If my teacher's guess is correct, she must have been kidnapped. If you rescue her and bring her to Shenyan sect, once she is trained, she will be of great benefit to you in the future. Lin Chengfeng said in surprise, fairy spirit constitution. Yes, have you forgotten that there is a forbidden technique in the inheritance of the God Emperor, which is to collect 10 special physiques in this world, and finally sacrifice these 10 physiques when you are promoted to the God Emperor. Able to acquire unparalleled powerful cultivation, even surpass the God Emperor, reach the pinnacle, and avenge your Lin family. When it came to revenge, Lin Chengfeng was silent for a moment. Then, he nodded slowly, but I am still a little worried. I am only in the late stage of nirvana. If that old man is really at the peak of nirvana, he may not be easy to deal with. Don't worry, I'm here to teach you everything. Give me control of your body when the time comes. Even if the spiritual master comes, he can't do anything to us. After hearing this, Lin Chengfeng finally felt relieved. He raised his eyes again and looked towards the corner on the left. This time the old man in black robe also spotted him. The latter drank the wine in his hand and glanced towards this side with a ferocious expression on his face. Lin Chengfeng looked away without leaving any trace. The old man in black robe grinned. He reached out and took off the robe above his head, revealing an ugly face covered with ferocious scars. These scars had already formed scars, adding an even more terrifying flavor to his already terrifying face. Snapped. He filled another wine glass with wine and slammed it on the table. The wine poured out and wet his robe. The little beggar next to him looked panicked. She looked at the wine glass in front of her. She shook her head hurriedly and said weakly, I cannot drink. Snapped. A slap hit her face hard. There was a blood-red slap mark on the young face with some dirt in it. The little beggar covered his face in pain, his petite body trembled slightly, and his eyes were full of tears. Don't spoil my fun, I'll beat you to death if you don't drink. The old man stared at her fiercely, drink it for me, don't leave a drop. The little beggar's eyes were moist. She reached out with trembling hands and grabbed the wine glass in front of her. The pungent smell of the wine made her eyes red. Under the fierce and teasing gaze of the old man, she took a sip. Ahem. Suddenly, her eyes were so stimulated that more tears flowed out, and her throat became burning. She hurriedly put down the wine glass, turned her head and coughed. Ha ha ha. The old man laughed and poured another glass of wine. I didn't expect that you are such a little chicken. You can't even drink wine. From now on, Grandpa will teach you how to drink. Not only will he teach you how to drink, but he will also teach you how to drink other things, ha. He smiled wildly. At this time, the music in front of him had stopped. Many people noticed him and looked curiously at the little beggar next to him. Lin Chengfeng held the sword in his hand and glanced at the black-robed old man quietly with his cold eyes. Master, do it. There was silence in my mind for a moment. Immediately, a voice came. Don't worry, now is not the time. At the same time, sitting on the most conspicuous seat in the front, a cool man in white clothes gently tapped the edge of the purple wood table next to him with his fingers. His dark eyes stared at the Oran in front of him without any scruples. The woman held the pipa in her hand. Under the blank gazes of everyone in the restaurant, she stood up softly and walked to sit next to the man in white. The next second, everyone in the restaurant suddenly widened their eyes. I saw that the Oran goddess, whom no one could blaspheme in their hearts, meekly poured a glass of wine for the man in white, then raised the glass with her jade hand and fed it to his mouth herself. Even Lin Chengfeng's eyes were attracted to the man in white. With his calm personality, he naturally inquired about the situation here before entering the Zhangxiang Tower. The Oran of Zhangxiang Tower, named Tang Qingyan, is a charming woman. She is proficient in music. With one song, the entire Kangcheng and even the surrounding sect disciples are intoxicated. Moreover, this woman has stunning looks and peerless beauty. She has fascinated many men here. The most important thing is that she is not from Kangcheng. No one knows where she comes from, but on weekdays, she treats any man like they all pretended to be an Oran, but no one here could win her down. Until now, countless wealthy young men had offered thousands of dollars, but none of them could win her favor. With such a beauty, it is natural that some cultivators would fall in love with her. Unfortunately, Lin Changfeng heard that all those who wanted to use force to force her would disappear mysteriously in the Shangshang Tower, and even their bodies could not be found. Such strange things also frightened countless practitioners who had evil intentions towards her. From then on, these people came to Zhangxiang Pavilion just to listen to the music. On the surface, they did not dare to have any evil thoughts towards Tang Qingyan. However, such a woman now took the initiative to sit next to the man in white, and changed her cold and glamorous look before, meekly pouring the man wine. Lin Changfeng was startled for a moment. Even with his temperament, when he saw Tang Qingyan's heavenly appearance, her exquisite side face, and her charming temperament, all the thoughts in his mind came to mind. Some fiery pictures emerged unconsciously. Unknowingly, his eyes were looking at Tang Qingyan's alluring skin as white as gelatin. Her hands were really like catkins, her skin was like gelatin, her eyebrows were furrowed, and she was so beautiful. He couldn't help but admire in his heart. With such a beautiful woman by his side, no man could resist the temptation. If he got this woman in his arms, he would probably shorten his life by several decades. Be careful, this girl is too charming and can easily affect your mind. An old voice reminded Lin Changfeng. Lin Changfeng nodded. Although he was a little wary in his heart, no matter what, he was just a young man in full bloom now. Seeing such a beautiful woman with skin and beautiful face, he said in his heart that it was impossible not to have any ideas. However, he could still restrain himself. Now, Lin Changfeng is also very interested in the identity of the man in white. It is not an easy man to make a woman like Tang Qingyan willing to pour wine for him. Master, what would happen if I asked that Oran to pour me a glass of wine? Lin Changfeng said with a smile. Although it was a joke, as a man, he said in his heart that it was impossible not to have any ideas. At least, there would be some jealousy and comparison. Don't cause trouble for me. That man in white is not a simple man. Even my master can't see through his cultivation. If it's not that there is some treasure on his body that blocks his aura, his strength is still above that of my master. Lin Changfeng took a sip of wine, shook his head and said with a smile, how is this possible? He looks about the same age as me. How can he be stronger than the master? There must be a treasure on him that blocks the aura. That also shows that his background is not simple. It's better not to offend him for the time being. At the very least, you have to feel at ease and be promoted to the spirit master first. Lin Changfeng nodded slightly, I know. His eyes flickered slightly, but his dark eyes were still staring at the back of the man in white and Tang Qingyan. The other side, the beauty was beside her, and the wine glass had been put down by her. She raised her delicate hands slightly and gently wiped away the drop of wine stain next to Su Ming's lips. Then, she gently raised her eyes and looked at his young and charming face with starry eyes. Twinkle, exhaled softly, why do you have time to accompany me today? She exuded an alluring fragrance. The fragrance hit her, and the charm was sultry, but Su Ming smiled calmly and said, I'm not here to accompany you. Tang Qingyan's clear eyes were looking forward to it, and she glanced at him resentfully. It's been a long time since you came, and you said such hurtful words as soon as you came, you irresponsible stinky man. Su Ming leaned back comfortably on the soft chair, raised the wine glass and shook it gently in his hand, then looked at her with his eyes, and smiled, a little more beautiful than last time. Tang Qingyan, with rosy cheeks, came closer to him, stretched out her jade hand and gently squeezed his thigh. I won't fall for your fancy words. Su Ming put down the wine glass and stroked her soft black hair. To be honest with you, you don't believe it. Then you stay with me tonight, and I will believe you. Accompany. Su Ming shook his head, not today. Tang Qingyan used her small hands to hit him hard, bad guy. Su Ming smiled and said, I will have worse times, but when the time comes, don't cry out that it hurts. Tang Qingyan reacted, her cheeks flushed, and she glared at him angrily, don't say anything. Su Ming nodded, I won't say it, I just do it. Tang Qingyan's face was full of shyness, and her pretty face was so red that it was almost bleeding. This guy really dared to say anything and was as bad as before. The two of them were whispering intimately and flirting as if no one else was around. But when this scene fell into the eyes of those at the back of the restaurant, their eyes widened. The originally subtle noise in the restaurant also quietly quieted down. The young man gritted his teeth and stared at Su Ming's back. None of them knew that although Tang Qingyan was usually the Oran of Zhangxiang Tower, she had a mysterious identity. Although she was unparalleled in beauty, in the eyes of everyone, she was as proud as a phoenix and could not be tamed. However, now, they actually saw with their own eyes, this proud phoenix took the initiative to get along so intimately with a man. This immediately shocked everyone here, and uncontrollable jealousy surged out of their hearts. Who is this guy, and why can Tang Qingyan favor him? His gazes were as if he wanted to kill someone. Including the old man in black robe in the left corner, his eyes were attracted when he saw Tang Qingyan for the first time. He was passing through Kangcheng and came to Zhangxiang Tower for the first time. After seeing Tang Qingyan, he felt so much in his heart. The stock is so hot that it is even harder to suppress. Originally, he wanted to wait for this woman to finish playing the music, then invite him to sit on his lap and drink 2 glasses of wine with him. Who knows, she was overtaken by a fair-faced boy. The boy looked extremely weak, and his cultivation level was even worse. He was so pitifully low, he was probably just an ignorant rich man who came out to have fun. He could kill a lot of these pretty boys with one slap. The old man grinned, and under the terrified eyes of the little beggar beside him, he called over the enchanting woman who was pouring wine for other guests. The woman gave him more wine. The old man pointed at Tang Qingyan, smiled evilly at the enchanting woman and said, "Go over, call that woman over, and pour me some wine." Hear the words. The enchanting woman was stunned for a moment, and then her eyes were full of weirdness. "What, you can't understand what I'm saying?" When the woman in front of him made no move, a flash of anger flashed across the eyes of the old man in black robes. He stared at her voluptuous body and said with an angry smile, "Not only call her over, but you also come and have a drink with me." Quote. The woman pointed at herself, and then said with a weird smile, "It's okay for me to have a drink with you, but I don't dare to call that woman. How about you go and call her yourself?" Her beautiful eyes teased. This old guy really doesn't know how to live or die. I don't know how many people have died at the hands of Sister Tang. I really thought that the name of Tiankui Demon was blown out. Their intelligence network of Tiankui Demon sect almost controls the entire information about all the powerful people in the Northern Spirit Realm. A guy like this who is not good enough can be crushed to death with one finger. That is to say, the Northern Wilderness Territory is too small. Outside the Northern Wilderness Territory, the evil reputation of the Tiankui female demon has made many strong people fearful. The old man narrowed his eyes. The aura belonging to the peak of Nirvana realm suddenly surged out from his body. His eyes swept over the woman in front of him, staring straight at the beautiful figure in front of him. He grinned. When everyone looked at him in surprise, he sneered at Tang Qingyan and said, "Speak directly, how many spirit stones do you want? I'll take care of you tonight." For a moment, the whole restaurant fell silent. Lin Chengfang from behind was also full of surprise. He never expected that this old man in black robe would say such a thing blatantly in front of everyone in the restaurant. Then he shook his head secretly, glanced at the little beggar next to the old man, and his eyes became alert, ready to take action at any time to save the person. Immediately, there was an uproar in the restaurant, and many eyes were cast on Tang Qingyan in front of her, as well as the man in white who was drinking leisurely beside her. Most of the people here know that Tang Qingyan, a woman, is full of a charming and cold temperament that is difficult for any man to tame. Although men like them are more and more attracted to her the more they cannot succeed, but for this kind of woman, all people only dare to think about it in their hearts. If they were to speak out openly like the old man in black robe, no one present would dare. The most important thing is that for such a woman, the man in white can actually make her pour her wine so meekly and talk to him tenderly and affectionately. Although most of them here are ordinary people, they are not fool. After a little guessing, they knew that the identity of the man in white was definitely not simple. Even if he was not a rich young master from a top family, he was definitely a disciple of a top sect. Even though the violent aura of the old man in black robe shocked many of them here, they now want to know more whether the man in white will let Tang Qingyan out. To be honest, no one would be willing to give up such a woman to others. Well, let's see who has more means. In a place like Kangcheng, there are not many Nirvana realm strong men. It can be said that there are almost none. Every time the demon tide breaks out in Nirvana realm, strong men are needed to guard the city. It is the elders of the Shenyan sect who come. In Kangchung itself, there is no Nirvana strongman sitting in charge. Therefore, when the black-robed old man's aura belonging to the peak of Nirvana burst out, many people were naturally shocked. However, although others in the restaurant were shocked by the strength of the black-robed old man. But in the seat at the front, Su Ming put down the wine glass in his hand and didn't even bother to pay attention to the old man in black robe behind him. He just tilted his head slightly, his eyes met Tang Qingyan's affectionate gaze, and he said softly, "Your injuries are almost healed. Tonight after that, let's leave Beiwang." Tang Qingyan stared at him softly. After hearing his words, she stretched out her little hand, pulled one of his hands over, played with it, and then said aggrievedly, "You drove me away again, I'm healed. Can't I stay here with you? Are you looking for another woman behind my back? You're afraid of being discovered by me, so you want to drive me away." It must be said that women have a very strong sixth sense. Su Ming calmed down and shook his head calmly, "No. Really." Tang Qingyan didn't believe him, so she moved her nose close to his neck and sniffed him lightly. In addition to her scent, Su Ming also had another faint feminine fragrance. She knew very well that it was not her scent. Liar. Tang Qingyan glared at him fiercely. Su Ming reached out and rubbed her head. "I'm currently teaching a junior sister how to practice. Don't think blindly." Tang Qingyan said loudly, "You are so good to your junior sister, why don't you know how to spend more time with me?" Su Ming smiled slightly and asked, "Why didn't I know you were so clingy before? Then you know now that you provoked me first. I will stick to you for the rest of my life and I will never be able to get rid of you." Tang Qingyan grabbed his arm, wrapped it around him, and stared at him seriously with charming eyes. She's not kidding. She used to be cold, ruthless, and murderous. She was originally a terrifying female devil. But after meeting Su Ming, she didn't care about fighting for world supremacy or sectarian disputes. She only wanted him, and she only cared about him in her heart, one person. Su Ming thought for a while, turned his head and kissed her hair gently, and then said softly, "I will stay with you forever." "Then why don't you drive me away?" "I'm not driving you away. You should have received information about the Xuanlong domain. Tiankui sect needs to take over the intelligence agency of the Imperial Palace and integrate all the forces. You also need to investigate the reality of the ancient Imperial clan. Otherwise, if the forces in the central continent take action against us, we will be passive by then." Tang Qingyan frowned slightly, looking up at Su Ming's chiseled face. She nodded gently, "But I can't let you go. She has such a temperament, she is a strong and domineering female devil in front of outsiders. Only with Su Ming can she truly show the gentlest side of a little woman in her heart, and she will also feel aggrieved and sad because of being separated from him." Su Ming was amused. "It's not like we won't meet again. Dare you laugh? I'm not smiling." Snort. The two talked softly. The people behind them didn't know what they said, but getting along so intimately was tantamount to telling others that their relationship was unusual, and it was even possible that it was the most intimate relationship between men and women. Many people were jealous with jealousy, and then secretly took a look at the old man in black robe who was left hanging behind him. When they saw the terrifying murderous intent bursting out of the old man's eyes, their hearts trembled. Is this old man going to take action? Really? At the same time that this idea came to their minds, the old man in black robe suddenly squeezed his palm and smashed the table in front of him with a fierce palm. Then he stood up suddenly, with murderous intent on his body, and sneered, You don't take me seriously, do you? I've seen a lot of wealthy young men like you, and many of them died at my hands. Today, you are not missing." The words fell. Like an afterimage, he appeared strangely behind Su Ming and the two of them. His rough palms covered with calluses grabbed directly at Tang Qingyan's delicate, snow-white shoulders. Killing was a common occurrence for him, but when he killed Su Ming, he didn't want to accidentally hurt a beauty. Such beauties are rarely seen. It's not easy to meet one, so he has to play with it first. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.